I read the Da Vinci Code in 2025, over 20 years after it was released. Does it still hold up? Did I enjoy it? Let's find out. One day I was cleaning out my bookshelf of the bajillions of books I knew I was never going to read again. I actually made 3 short form videos talking about everything I was going to get rid of. Links in the description. I had 2 full boxes that I was going to donate to Goodwill. My dad was actually looking through them and he found the Da Vinci Code and he was like, you know that's your mom's, right? For those of you who don't know, my mom was a huge reader. I'm pretty sure I genetically inherited my hobby from her. She literally used to use my closet to store her excess books. Eventually she rented a storage unit to put all of her books in. And yes, there was that many. It was ridiculous. Eventually she sold them all to a local half-price books. But yes, Da Vinci Code was originally her book. My dad told me that this book apparently took the world by storm, starring Tom Hanks and the guy who plays freaking Professor X. Frick, is that his name? I can't even freaking remember. I haven't seen the movie, so I will not be using it for B-roll. I don't want to spoil myself, even though I know what happens. Anyway, the idea that this book had a movie adaptation, a book I already own, intrigued me. So I read it and I gave it a 2.5 stars. Now this review will be full spoilers and I'm doing it all from memory. I ain't opening this birch again. So if I get some shit wrong, oops. Now to start off with the things I did like about this book, I am a sucker for hidden histories, secret organizations. I love the potentially alternate history that Dan Brown would explain to us. I won't say what is fact and what is fiction because I don't know where one begins and where Dan Brown starts to get playful. I don't know if any of y'all watching this have ever played Assassin's Creed, any of the games, but those were fire, first of all. But in them, one of my favorite parts was the history of our world in the Assassin's Creed universe. Like, I'm pretty sure in Assassin's Creed lore, John F. Kennedy rose to power via a piece of Eden and was assassinated by the Templars because he was about to publicly expose them, and Lyndon B. Johnson was a Templar. Crazy shit. All I'm saying. To me, this gave similar vibes, specifically similar vibes to the Priory of Sion. I loved the history of like the leaders like Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, and others. Although I think the Priory of Sion is actually real. I could be wrong, but I think there is some evidence that they existed, but it felt like Assassin's Creed. That's the point I'm trying to get across. I really like the info dumps of the history. Normally I hate info dumps, but these were actually really interesting to read, so I wasn't really that mad about them. I really like the puzzles that our characters went through. I could never figure them out before they were revealed, but I tried. I love being able to theorize and do all this sort of shit while I'm reading the book. That's like so fun, and that's what makes mystery books like the best, or one of my favorites. Probably why The Locked Tomb is my new favorite thing right now. Check it out, links in the description. I think the external plot of this book was really well thought out and fun, which I'm glad it was because the external plot is literally all this book was. The plot was really driven by the puzzles that our characters had to finish out. Completing one puzzle opens up the clues to completing another puzzle and so on. We keep going as our characters unravel the mystery of what Sophie's grandfather, Saunier, don't know how to say his name, left behind. I really enjoyed the puzzle aspect. I kept trying to figure them out without doing any research of the actual historical clues being left in the book, which obviously means I didn't get a single one right, but I very much enjoyed my piss poor attempts. It was fun. Like I said, books making you theorize, predict, try to put things together. I love that. Make me do it more. As for our villains, with regards to the plot, I thought Silas would have a bigger role along with Bishop Aaron Garosa, but I guess that's because the book fooled me. Hindsight is 2020 because you're kind of just like, of course it was T-Bing. From like, as soon as you meet him, I should have just been like, who else could Teacher possibly have been? Like, I cannot believe I didn't see it because I remember trying really hard to figure out who Teacher could have been, and I just could not think of a single person that we met. Maybe T-Bing's acting was just so good he got past me. What can I say? I've never been that great at spotting out liars. But yeah, honestly, the fact that I didn't guess it is really embarrassing. I think I deserve to get flamed, so if you want to flame me, you can go ahead and do that in the comments down below. Dan Brown is clearly a master of reveals and dropping hints and clues, and I like that. Hold on. Are you enjoying this video? Don't swipe away, you little birch. Make sure you check out my sponsor and wish list in the description, and follow my Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, everything. All right, back to the video. Toodles. I've never said toodles before in my life. I want you guys to know that. I think I already mentioned alternate history, right? I think the history drops were where my attention was held the most, which like isn't a good thing. I think in most cases, lore drops probably not where the strongest point of your book should be. And yeah, if I'm saying that that was the best part of the book, All right, now on to the things I didn't really like. To start off, femininity was so emphasized in this book, and there was maybe 3 named women characters. One of them had a single chapter and then like died, or 2 chapters maybe and then died. The other one that wasn't Sophie showed up in like the last 10 pages. To me, having so many puzzles and histories in this book deal with the worship of the feminine and have an abysmal lack of women characters just felt like weird and bad. It felt rude. Like, to me, I got the idea that the Priory of Sion were the good guys throughout history. And in this book, there were like no women to be seen besides Sophie and some historical name drops. I think that adding more women and emphasizing the value of worshiping them like the Priory of Sion did, but during the actual story and having that be a part of the actual events, this probably would have been better in my opinion. Like, to me, this just felt like kind of, wow, the audacity kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you mean you're celebrating women here, but there's barely any women in the actual book? What do you mean, Dan Brown? Like, how did this not occur to you? Am I just like dumb or something? I don't know. Maybe. Now, okay, now I won't get into like the whole super like man/woman binary and they complete each other, blah, 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 blah. This came out in like 2003. If this was released today, I would probably criticize this way more heavily just because, you know, things are different with regards to sexuality and the celebration of woman, man, you know, non-binary, blah, 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 blah. So in that aspect, I feel like that does not hold up today. But that's also like a generally relatively new thing. It's what I want to say, but you've made very many references, Dan Brown, that Leonardo da Vinci was a gay man. Maybe not. But like I said, this came out in 2003, so I'm not entirely surprised. It was like expected, whatever. That obviously does not stand the test of time. The bigger problem I had was the hypocrisy of celebrating women, but like, where are all the women? I actually had a really big problem with that. It just felt like a glaringly obvious thing, like a big thing. I'm like, come on, guys. Are we really doing this right now? The next thing I didn't like was the POV changes, specifically how the POV would change without any break in the text. We'd just be there reading, and then we would start hearing Langdon's thoughts. And then a few lines down, we would switch to Sophie's thoughts. And then a few lines down again, we would switch to Teabing's thoughts. What the frick? This was actually terrible. What a terrible choice. It annoyed the shit out of me every single time it happened. And I noticed every single time it happened. It was so distracting and so annoying. I kept getting startled and confused. I would be reading what I thought was Langdon, and then all of a sudden, it turns out I've actually been reading Sophie for the last like 3 lines. Once again, what a terrible choice. Did not enjoy that even a little bit. I would go as far as to say I hated that. I genuinely hope I never have to read anything like this ever again, specifically with regards to the way the POVs change. I've never experienced this before, ever. And if I'm ever unlucky enough to experience it again, I will simply DNF. I'll close the book right then and there. The final thing I didn't like, and the biggest reason why I gave this a 2.5 star rating, is because of the characters. Specifically, our main duo, Langdon and Sophie. When I first finished this book, I was of the mind that I thought all the characters were boring, but now I think I've changed my mind about that. This is actually why I wait a little bit to do a review on a book. Let it fester, let it seethe for a little bit to see if I end up changing my mind on anything. Maybe I'll try not doing that sometime in the future. Like, maybe I'll record a review like 3 seconds after I finish the book. Who knows? But yeah, maybe see how it goes. But like I said, at first I thought all the characters were flat, but now I think I've changed my mind about Teabing, Remy, Silas Fachet, and Aaron Garosa. I actually don't hate them as characters. If I had to go in order of the characters I think I like the most, it would probably be Teabing, Aaron Garosa, Silas Fachet, Remy, Sophie, then Langdon. Upon reflection, I think these characters, these side characters specifically, everybody else except for Colette, and Langdon and Sophie, they have a few layers to them, I think, and what they chose to justify and how they justify their actions, I think that provides at least a little bit of depth to them. For characters like Fachet and Aaron Garosa, I'm probably butchering the shit out of that name, you weren't actually told too much about them, but you're able to like infer a decent amount about their personalities based on their actions. And I like it when that happens in books. I like being able to figure out things about the character based on how they act rather than being told their thoughts sometimes. Nice job on that, I guess. Okay, now back to Sophie and Langdon. These two are what killed the book for me. If characters were food, they would be white bread. They had almost nothing to their personalities, no flaws, no complexities, nothing. At least in the moment as the story is going on. Maybe in flashbacks for Sophie a little bit, but not during the events of this book. Langdon was quite literally, and I mean literally, Nothing more than an information dispenser and like a decently good dude. That's literally all he did. Spout facts and be nice. I genuinely can't remember a single other thing about him besides this. Do y'all? Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just a hater. As for Sophie, her entire thing was that she regrets how she treated her grandfather and is a cryptographer whose skills she like rarely uses. Her entire role was to reminisce of her childhood with her grandfather and then tell either Langdon or T-Bing and have them do the majority of the work. And the things she was able to figure out was due to her grandfather being the one who left the puzzles. I really wanted Sophie to be a more powerful character than what she was. I think she came off very interesting in the beginning of the book, but throughout it, that kind of fades away. I'm not saying she has to be perfect, but the vibe I got when reading the rest is that she just became significantly less interesting as a character as the book went on. But at least she changed a tiny bit, going from feeling sad that her grandfather died to feeling regret, I guess. All right, now back to Langdon. I literally cannot believe anybody who gives two shits about this dude. He did not change at all. Like, screw this dude. Personality wise, he might be one of the most boring, if not the most boring protagonist I've ever read in my entire life. He and Sophie killed this book, but he did like 70% of the work. Like I said earlier, the only things you can attribute to this dude are information dumper and nice dude. That's it. Nothing else. Did Dan Brown purposely try to make Langdon bland and about as full of personality as like an empty bowl for self-insert reasons? Did he want to write a character with an empty personality so any normal ass dude could insert himself into this character to imagine himself going on an adventure with a super hot French baddie? Like, come on, bro. I feel like this definitely does not hold up in 2025. I wouldn't say our expectations for interesting characters have gone up or down, because there are books that came out before this with way more interesting characters, main characters, but I don't see how this blend of a character should be acceptable in any novel in 2025. I've said this in other videos and I'll say it again. Weak characters can absolutely not be saved by a good plot, but the reverse is absolutely true. Amazing characters can absolutely save a mediocre external plot. In conclusion, this book could have at least been a 4-star book if Langdon and Sophie were not dog shit. There were more women characters, strong women characters, to at least be respectful to the history the Priory was supposedly worshiping. And if there was at bare minimum text breaks between POV changes. Okay, when I list it out like that, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is to me. 2.5 stars, maybe 3 if I'm feeling generous, maybe. And yeah, that is my negative review of the Da Vinci Code. There were some things that I liked, but for the most part, those were significantly overshadowed by the things that I did not like. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate y'all. Make sure you check out some of the other videos up here, and I will see you next time.